The night was silent, the sky was dark, and the human colony slept in peace far from the busy cities of Earth. The colony was small, built on the edge of rocky land, where tall metal towers stood like lonely guards under the stars. People lived simple lives here, farming, fixing machines, raising children, and dreaming of a better future. But on this night, the silence broke. A strange light appeared in the sky, moving fast, brighter and brighter as it cut through the clouds. At first, people thought it was a comet. Some thought it was a shooting star, but soon the sound followed, a roar like thunder, shaking windows and rattling doors. Families ran outside, pointing to the sky. Fear and wonder mixed in their eyes. The light grew larger. Flames covered the object, and then it fell, crashing in the empty valley near the colony. The ground trembled. Dust and fire rose into the air. Alarms rang across the settlement. Soldiers rushed to their posts. Mothers pulled children inside. Fathers grabbed weapons. No one knew what had arrived. No one knew if it was friend or enemy. The colony leader ordered the guards to investigate. Their boots pounded against the rocky ground as they marched to the valley, rifles ready. The night smelled of smoke and burning metal. Sparks danced around the crash site. Pieces of glowing debris scattered across the sand, and at the center, the wreck of a small ship lay twisted and broken. The guards formed a circle, guns raised, waiting. The metal of the ship groaned, and slowly the hatch creaked open. A shadow moved inside, small and weak, then she appeared. A young alien girl, her skin pale with a faint silver glow under the firelight. Her eyes wide with fear, her body shaking. She stepped out barefoot, stumbling as if every step hurt. The guards shouted, some swore, some laughed. Others spat on the ground, calling her a trick, calling her a spy. No one trusted the sight of her. She lifted her thin hands, trying to show she carried no weapon. Her voice trembled, strange words spilling from her mouth, but the humans only heard broken sounds. They did not understand. Stay back, a soldier yelled, pressing his finger to the trigger. The girl flinched, tears in her glowing eyes. She fell to her knees, coughing from the smoke. The crowd that had gathered behind the guards jeered, whispering to one another, "She is dangerous. She is lying. Kill her before she calls her people." Fear turned to anger, and anger turned to hate. But one man stepped closer. A young engineer named Daniel, his uniform dirty with grease, his hands rough from fixing machines. Unlike the others, he did not raise his weapon. He looked at her carefully, and what he saw was not an enemy, but a lost child. Broken and scared, he felt pity stir inside his chest. "She is not here to fight," Daniel said, his voice steady, but the guards laughed at him, calling him soft, calling him blind. "Do not be fooled," their leader barked. "She is here to trick us. She is the beginning of an invasion." But Daniel shook his head, his eyes still locked on the girl. He could see the cuts on her arms, the bruises on her face, marks of pain no spy would carry. The alien girl tried to speak again. This time slower, she pointed at the sky, then at herself, then at the ground. Her voice cracked, weak, but her meaning clear. She was not here to fight. She was here because she had nowhere else to go. The guards did not listen. They moved closer, chains ready. One kicked her down when she tried to stand. The crowd cheered, their fear disguised as courage. Daniel clenched his fists. His heart burning with anger, he wanted to shout at them. He wanted to protect her, but he knew, if he stood against them now, he would be punished too. The leader ordered the alien girl to be taken. "Lock her in the cell," he said. "Tomorrow we will decide what to do." The guards grabbed her arms. Dragging her across the dirt, her weak body stumbled. Leaving a trail in the dust, her eyes searched the crowd, desperate until they found Daniel. For a moment, their eyes met. And in that moment, Daniel understood. She was begging him silently not to abandon her. The gates closed behind her, heavy metal slamming shut. The people of the colony returned to their homes, still whispering, still afraid, but Daniel could not sleep. The image of her broken figure haunted him. He had seen many machines break in his life, but he had never seen a soul break, and tonight, he felt the weight of her pain on his own shoulders. Far above, the stars watched, silent witnesses to what had just begun. A secret story of a poor alien girl who no one believed, and a human who could not ignore her. A story of fear, trust, and the dangerous path that was waiting for them both. Morning came slowly. The sun rose over the rocky hills, painting the colony in soft light. But there was no peace in the air. The people were restless. Whispers filled the streets. They talked about the strange visitor. Some called her a monster. Some called her a liar. Very few saw her as helpless. In the meeting hall, the leaders gathered. Soldiers stood by the doors and the alien girl was dragged in, her wrists bound with metal cuffs, her steps slow, her face pale. The people inside stared at her like she was a dangerous animal. Voices rose, harsh and cruel. Laughter mixed with curses, one of the leaders. A tall man with sharp eyes leaned forward and said, "Tell us, creature, why are you here? Why have you come to our world?" His voice was full of suspicion. The girl tried to answer, her broken words struggling to form meaning. She spoke of running away, of being hunted. Her voice trembled, her eyes wet with fear. But the humans only heard fragments, strange sounds that made little sense. They laughed at her, mocking her stumbles, repeating her broken words like children making jokes. The hall echoed with cruel amusement. The girl lowered her head, ashamed. Though she had done nothing wrong, Daniel stood at the side, silent, his jaw tight, his heart heavy. He wanted to step forward, to explain what she was trying to say, but the weight of the crowd kept him still. He felt the eyes of soldiers on him, ready to strike if he dared to defend her too much. The leader slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "She lies, do you not see? She speaks of hunters, of enemies. But perhaps she is the enemy herself. Perhaps she was sent here to trick us, to test our defenses, to make us weak." The crowd cheered in agreement, fear turning into cruel strength. The alien girl raised her head, her silver eyes glowing with tears. She shook her head, whispering no. Again and again, she pressed her hands to her chest, begging them to believe her, but they laughed louder. Some called her weak, some called her worthless. A soldier pushed her forward, making her fall to the ground. The crowd clapped as if it was entertainment. Daniel clenched his fists. His voice finally broke through. "Stop, can you not see she is hurt? She's not our enemy." His words silenced the hall for a moment. All eyes turned to him. The leader smirked and said, "Ah, here he is, the engineer who pities the creature. Tell us, Daniel, do you love this alien? Do you believe she will save you, while the rest of us die?" The hall erupted in laughter again, cruel and sharp, mocking both Daniel and the girl. Daniel's face burned with shame, but he did not step back. His voice strong, "I see her pain. I see she has no weapon, no army, nothing but fear. If you cannot see that, then you are blind." But his words were drowned by the roar of the crowd. The leader waved his hand and ordered, "Take her away, lock her in the cold cell, let her think of her lies. Tomorrow we will decide her fate." The guards pulled her up, dragging her again. Her eyes searched the room, desperate for a single kind face. They found Daniel, and only Daniel. He gave a small nod, a silent promise that he would not forget her. The hall emptied, people leaving with laughter on their lips, spreading rumors through the colony. Some said the girl was a demon. Some said she carried disease. Others said she was bait for an invasion. No one wanted to believe the truth, because fear was easier than trust. That night Daniel walked alone, the streets quiet, the stars bright above him, but his heart was heavy. He could not forget her eyes, the way they begged for understanding. He could not forget the cruelty of his people, how quickly fear turned to hate, how quickly laughter turned into a weapon sharper than any blade. He reached the prison cell guarded by 2 soldiers. He waited until their eyes grew heavy with sleep. Then he slipped inside, quiet as a shadow. The cell was dark and cold. The alien girl sat in the corner, her knees pulled to her chest, her face buried. When she heard the door creak, she lifted her head, fear flashing in her eyes. But when she saw Daniel, her fear softened. A spark of hope appeared. He knelt beside her, offering a piece of bread, and whispered, "You are not alone. I believe you." The girl stared at him, then slowly, with shaking hands, she took the bread, tears rolling down her cheeks. For the first time since her arrival, she felt a touch of kindness. Daniel stayed with her, listening as she tried to explain more. Using gestures, broken words, drawings on the floor, she spoke of hunters, of chains, of escape, and of the danger that followed her. Daniel's heart sank as he realized her story was true and the colony was blind. Outside, the night grew colder, but inside the cell a fragile bond formed, a bond no laughter could break, a bond that would be tested by fire and fear. And though the leaders mocked her, though the people called her a liar, Daniel knew one thing in his heart. The alien girl was not here to harm them. She was here because she was running from something far worse, and soon, that something would arrive. The colony slept in uneasy silence. The wind carried the smell of dust and iron, and the cold of night pressed hard against the metal walls. Inside the cell, the alien girl shivered, her thin arms wrapped around herself, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. She whispered words in her own tongue, soft and broken, like prayers that no one could understand. Daniel sat outside, leaning against the wall, his head heavy with thoughts he could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, frightened yet full of hidden strength. He wondered why no one else saw it, why people chose laughter and anger instead of truth. Suddenly, the sky above the colony cracked with light, sharp and unnatural. The ground trembled as shadows crossed the stars. People rushed out of their homes, pointing upward, fear spreading like fire. Strange ships moved in the night, dark and silent, their shapes sharp like blades. Alarms rang, soldiers shouted. The leaders gathered quickly, their voices loud with panic. "It is an invasion," one cried. "They have come for us," the people screamed. Running in confusion, children clung to their mothers. Men grabbed whatever weapons they could. The colony had never faced such terror before. In her cell, the alien girl pressed her hands against the cold bars. Her eyes wide with dread, she knew those shapes. She knew them too well. Daniel rushed to her, unlocking the door in secret. She grabbed his arm, shaking her head, whispering words with urgency. "They are not mine," she said, her broken voice struggling. "Hunters, they hunt me. They hunt all." She pointed to the sky again, then to the scars on her arms, the burns on her back, pulling her torn clothes slightly to show marks carved into her skin. Symbols burned deep. Daniel's heart froze. Those were no ordinary wounds. They were brands, signs of chains and suffering. Daniel finally understood. She was not a spy. She was a runaway, escaping monsters who treated her people as prey. He looked into her eyes, and for the first time, her fear and her truth were clear. But outside, the leaders prepared to act. "We will hand her over," the tall man with sharp eyes said. "It is her they want, not us. Give her to them, and they will leave us in peace," the crowd agreed. Desperate to survive, blind to the truth, Daniel grabbed the girl's hand and whispered, "They will betray you. They will throw you back to them." Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She had expected no less. She had seen this pattern before. Worlds sacrificing the weak to protect themselves. The hunter's ship circled above. Beams of light scanned the ground, searching, hunting. The air felt heavy, full of dread. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to protect her. But how could one man fight against such power? Still, he could not walk away. The girl spoke again, using gestures, drawing shapes on the dirt floor. Her fingers shaky but clear. She drew the hunter's ship, then crossed it out, then tapped her chest and Daniel's hand, then pointed to the power generators near the colony's edge. Daniel stared, slowly realizing she knew something. She knew their weakness. "You escaped them," he whispered. "You know how to fight them," she nodded, weak but certain, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and courage. The sound of heavy boots echoed down the hall. Guards approached, ready to take her. Daniel looked around quickly, his mind racing. If they captured her now, the hunters would win and the colony would be doomed. He had to act. The cell door slammed open. Guards entered, sneering. "Time to hand over the monster," one said. Grabbing her arm, the girl cried out, struggling. Daniel stepped forward, blocking their path. "Stop," he shouted. "If you give her up, we are all dead. Do you not see? They will not spare us. They never spare anyone." The guards laughed. "And you know this how?" one mocked. Daniel's eyes burned with anger. "Because I listened to her, because I saw her wounds, because I believe her." His voice shook with passion, but the guards pushed him aside, dragging the girl toward the hall. The colony gathered again, this time under the glow of the hunters' ships above. The people trembled, waiting for the sky to open. The leader raised his voice. "We give you the girl. Leave us in peace," he shouted, hoping the hunters would hear. But the alien girl's eyes blazed. She struggled against the chains, her voice breaking through the night. "No peace, no peace, they kill all," she screamed. Daniel shouted with her, his voice echoing. "Listen to her, for once, listen." But the people covered their ears, blinded by fear. Then the hunter sent a beam of light down. Scorching the ground, the message was clear. They were coming. Not for peace, but for blood. The crowd screamed, panic erupted. The leaders froze, realizing too late that Daniel and the alien girl had spoken the truth. In that moment, the colony saw a glimpse of what was coming. Shadows of war, shadows of chains, and one fragile girl standing between them and death. Daniel stepped closer to her, whispering fiercely, "I will not let them take you. Not while I breathe." And as the hunters descended, the secret was revealed. The alien girl was not a threat. She was a warning that humanity had chosen to laugh at, until it was too late. The air was heavy with smoke. The hunters' ships floated above the colony like silent vultures, their light scanning the ground, their shadows crawling over the walls. The people huddled together in the square, whispering prayers, their eyes filled with terror. The alien girl stood in chains, her thin body trembling, her silver eyes wet with tears. Daniel stood beside her, his fists clenched, his voice raw from shouting, "They will not spare us. Do not hand her over." But the leaders ignored him, their faces pale yet hard. The tall leader with sharp eyes raised his hand, his voice cutting through the panic. "This is our chance. The girl is what they want. If we give her to them, maybe they will leave us alone. It is better to sacrifice one than lose all." The crowd roared in agreement, their fear stronger than reason, their hope hanging on a lie. The girl shook her head, whispering in her broken voice, "No peace, no mercy, they kill. They take." She pulled at her chains, desperate for someone to listen. But the people laughed bitterly, calling her a liar, calling her cursed. Daniel stepped forward, his voice shaking with fury. "You fools, can you not see? Look at her scars. Look at the fire in the sky. She is not our enemy. She is our only chance." But his words fell on deaf ears, drowned by the shouts of the mob. The leader sneered, turning his eyes on Daniel. "And you, engineer, are you one of them now? Do you betray your own kind for this creature?" The crowd muttered, suspicion spreading like poison. Some even pointed at Daniel, calling him a traitor, calling him bewitched. Daniel's heart pounded, but he did not step back. "If protecting her means betrayal, then yes, I will betray your fear. I will not betray what is right." His words cut the air like a blade, but they were met with anger. The guards moved quickly, grabbing Daniel, pushing him to the ground, his face slammed into the dirt. His hands bound, the crowd cheered. Their fear now feeding on cruelty, the girl cried out, struggling against her chains, reaching toward him, but the soldiers pulled them apart. The leader raised his voice again. "Take them both, lock them away. Tomorrow we will hand the girl to the hunters. And let this foolish man watch as we save ourselves." The people cheered, believing the lie, blind to the doom above them. Dragged through the dust, Daniel and the girl were thrown into separate cells. The doors slammed shut, the iron cold against their skin. Daniel groaned, blood on his lip, his eyes burning with rage. He gripped the bars and shouted, "You will doom us all." "You cowards," but no one listened. The guards only laughed. In her cell, the girl sobbed softly, whispering words in her own language. Words Daniel could not hear, words of despair and memory. She remembered the chains of the hunters, the screams of her people, the endless nights of running, and now betrayal once again, even among those she hoped would help. Hours passed, the colony restless. People argued in the streets, some doubted the leaders, whispering that Daniel might be right. But fear silenced them. No one dared speak too loud. No one dared stand against the decision. Daniel sat in the dark, his mind racing. He remembered the drawings she had made on the ground, the weakness of the hunters she had tried to show him, the hope she carried. He knew if they handed her over, it was not just her life that would end. It was the colony. It was all of them. He pressed his head against the bars and whispered into the night, "Hold on. I will not let them take you. I will find a way." His voice was soft, but it carried through the silence. The girl in the next cell lifted her head, her eyes glowing faintly. She could not understand all his words, but she understood his promise. Above, the hunters' ships moved closer, their engines humming, their lights brighter, a storm of death waiting to fall, and yet the colony placed its faith in betrayal, in sacrifice, in cowardice disguised as survival. The night grew colder, the guards patrolled, their boots echoing on the metal floors. Daniel sat in chains, but his spirit refused to break. He stared at the wall between him and the girl, his mind burning with one thought. He would not let betrayal be the last chapter of their story. The girl closed her eyes, her breath slow, her heart heavy. She knew the hunters, she knew their cruelty, and she knew the humans had made their choice. But she also knew Daniel was different. He had looked at her not with fear, not with hate, but with hope, and for that, she held on to one fragile belief. That betrayal would not be the end, that somewhere in the darkness courage would rise, courage stronger than chains, stronger than fear. And as the hunters' ships cast their long shadows over the colony, the fate of the poor alien girl and the stubborn human rested on a knife's edge. Tomorrow, the betrayal would be complete unless Daniel found the strength to defy his own people. The morning came, but it did not bring light. The sky was covered with shadows. The hunters' ships floated above like black clouds, their engines humming low and cold. The people of the colony gathered in fear. their voices small against the roar of the sky. The leaders stood tall, pretending to be brave, but their eyes shook. Sweat rolled down their necks. They had made their choice. They would hand over the alien girl. They believed this would save them. One life for many, sacrifice for survival. The guards dragged the girl out from her cell, her chains clinking against the stone floor, her feet stumbling, her silver eyes empty with sorrow. Daniel shouted from behind his bars, his voice rough, "Do not give her to them. They will kill us all." But no one listened. His words vanished in the storm of fear. The girl was pushed to the center of the colony. The people stared, some with pity, most with anger. Children hid behind their mothers. Men gripped their tools like weapons. All eyes turned upward as a beam of light broke through the clouds, striking the ground like a spear. The hunters had arrived. Their ship opened, a ramp lowered, and figures stepped out, tall, armored, their faces hidden by masks, their movements sharp and cruel. They carried weapons that glowed with strange fire. The crowd gasped. Some fell to their knees, begging for mercy. The leader of the colony stepped forward, raising his hands, his voice shaking but loud. "We bring you the one you seek, take her, and leave us in peace." His words echoed weakly, but the hunters did not answer. They only marched closer, their boots heavy, their weapons aimed at the people. The alien girl cried out, her broken voice rising. "No peace, no mercy, they kill, they take." Her chains rattled as she tried to pull away. Daniel slammed his fists against the bars of his cell, screaming, "Listen to her for once. Listen." But the mob shouted him down, desperate to believe their lie. The hunters reached the girl, one grabbed her by the arm. Lifting her like she was nothing, she struggled, her voice raw with fear. "They kill all," she screamed again, but the crowd looked away, ashamed yet silent. Then the first shot came, not at the girl, but at the crowd. A beam of fire ripped through the square. People screamed as buildings exploded. The hunters opened fire without warning. Mothers pulled children into their arms, men ran. The leaders fell, their plan broken in a single heartbeat. Panic swallowed the colony. The air filled with smoke and blood. The hunters marched forward, striking down anyone who moved, their laughter echoing through their helmets. The people who had begged for peace now ran in terror. Betrayed by their own cowardice, Daniel roared with fury, slamming himself against the cell door. The lock cracked under his weight. His shoulder burned, but the door gave way. He stumbled out, grabbing a fallen guard's weapon, his eyes burning with fire. He had no plan, only one thought: protect the girl. The hunters dragged her toward their ship. She kicked and screamed, her voice raw, but she was too weak, too small. Daniel charged through the smoke, blasting at the hunters with human fire. One fell, then another, their armor sparking. The crowd gasped, watching the engineer fight like a soldier. The girl saw him. Her eyes wide with hope, she shouted his name in broken words. Reaching out, Daniel fought harder, pushing through the flames, his hands shaking, his breath short but his will unbroken. He would not let them take her, not while he lived. The hunters turned their weapons on him, their beams slicing the air. Daniel ducked, rolled, fired back. The ground shook as explosions lit the square. People ran past him, screaming, but Daniel stood firm, a single man against monsters, his courage stronger than their fear. The girl's chains broke loose in the chaos. She stumbled free, crawling toward Daniel, her hands glowing faintly, a strange energy sparking from her skin. She touched the ground and the earth shivered. The hunters stepped back for a moment, surprised. Daniel reached her, pulling her to her feet. "We have to run," he shouted. But the girl shook her head, pointing toward the colony's power station, her broken voice urgent. "Weakness there, we fight. We win." Daniel's eyes widened. She had told him before she knew their weakness. She carried the secret that could save them. The hunters regrouped, marching closer, fire burning in their weapons. The people of the colony screamed, some begging for Daniel to save them, though they had mocked him only yesterday. Daniel clenched his jaw, his heart racing. He looked at the girl, fragile yet brave, and he made his choice. "Then we fight," he whispered, pulling her close, turning toward the flames. The invasion had begun, but it was not the end. It was the beginning of a war where one poor alien girl and one stubborn human would stand together, against hunters, against fear, against betrayal, and the fate of the colony now rested on their courage. The colony burned, smoke covered the sky, flames danced on the metal walls. The hunters marched like shadows of death, their weapons spitting fire. The people screamed, running in every direction, but there was no safe place, no mercy. Daniel pulled the alien girl through the chaos, his grip tight on her hand, his weapon heavy in the other. He fired at the hunters, but their armor was strong, their strength far greater than human flesh. Yet he refused to stop, his heart beat with one thought: keep her alive. The girl stumbled beside him, her breath sharp, her silver eyes glowing brighter in the smoke. She pointed again toward the power station at the edge of the colony, her broken voice urgent. Weakness there. Hurry. Daniel nodded, trusting her without question. They ducked behind broken walls, hunters close behind, their laughter cold and cruel. One fired a beam that tore through the stone. Daniel pushed the girl down just in time, dust covering their faces. She coughed weak, but her eyes full of fire. They reached the power station, its towers humming with energy, the air buzzing. The girl pressed her glowing hands against the metal pipes, her body trembling. Sparks danced around her skin. She closed her eyes, whispering strange words. The machines reacted, lights flickered. The ground shook. Daniel stared, stunned. You control it, he whispered. The girl opened her eyes, sweat on her face. No control, only know they fear this power. We use it. Her voice cracked, but her meaning was clear. This was the hunters' weakness. The hunters charged, their footsteps heavy, their weapons ready. Daniel raised his rifle, firing with all his strength. He aimed for their joints, their helmets. Any place the armor seemed thin. One hunter fell, another stumbled. But still they came, endless, merciless. The girl pressed harder against the machine. Her glow spreading into the wires, the towers roared. Energy building. A loud hum filled the air. The hunters slowed, their masks turning toward her, their voices sharp with fear for the first time. They hesitated. Daniel saw it. Their weakness was real, he shouted. Keep going. Don't stop, the girl screamed, her body shaking, light bursting from her hands. The machines roared louder, then exploded with blinding energy. The blast threw hunters back, their armor sparking, their weapons failing. The crowd that had once mocked her gasped, watching as the girl they had called weak now struck fear into their enemies. Daniel stood in front of her, protecting her from falling debris. His face cut, his body bruised, but his spirit burning. The hunters regrouped, their leader stepping forward, taller than the rest, his armor dark with strange markings. He raised a weapon larger than any the colony had seen. Glowing with deadly fire, the people screamed, running again. The ground shook under its power. Daniel pulled the girl to her feet. We can't stop now, he whispered. She nodded, her legs weak but her will unbroken. Together they moved toward the tower's core. Where the energy was strongest, the hunter leader fired, a beam tearing through the ground. The shockwave threw Daniel back, his chest burning. His weapon flying from his hands, the girl cried out, crawling toward him. She touched his arm, her glow softening his pain. A small healing spark, not enough, but enough to make him rise again. Daniel grabbed a fallen rifle. Standing tall, we finished this, he said. His voice steady, the girl stood beside him, her eyes glowing like silver fire. She raised her hands, calling the energy again. The machines answered, the air screaming with power. The hunters attacked, beams cutting through the air. Daniel fired, dodged, fought with every breath. His muscles screamed, his body bleeding, but he never stepped back. The girl screamed with him, her light growing brighter, bursting like lightning, striking the hunters down one by one. The battle raged. The colony turned into a storm of fire and light. People hiding in fear watched in silence, unable to believe that one human and one alien child fought against an army, their courage shining brighter than the flames. At last, the girl reached her limit. Her knees buckled, her glow fading. Daniel caught her, holding her close. Stay with me, he whispered. Her breath shallow, but her eyes still burning. She whispered back, not yet, not end. The hunter leader raised his weapon again, his mask glowing red, the air filled with death. Daniel lifted his rifle, knowing it might not be enough, but ready to fight until the last breath. The girl pressed her hand against the machine one final time, her body trembling, her glow returning. Brighter than ever before, she screamed, a sound of pain and fury. The towers exploded with a wave of pure light. The hunters screamed as their armor cracked. Their weapons burned and their bodies fell into the fire. The leader staggered, roaring, his mask breaking, his voice full of rage, but he too stumbled, his weapon shattering, his strength fading under the storm. He fell to his knees, defeated. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire and the hum of dying machines. The hunters lay broken, their shadows gone. The colony stood trembling, staring at the girl and the human who had fought for them. Daniel dropped to his knees, holding the girl, her body weak, her glow fading into soft light. She looked up at him, whispering, "Fight!" Not done, danger bigger, coming soon. Then her eyes closed. Her body limp in his arms, Daniel looked at the frightened crowd. His face hard, his voice strong. You see now she saved you. Not your leaders, not your fear, her, and she is not the enemy. She is hope. The people bowed their heads in shame, their hearts heavy with guilt, but above, the sky still burned. The battle was won, but the war had only just begun. The battlefield was quiet at last. The hunters lay broken among the flames. Their weapons cracked, their ships smoking in the sky. The colony stood in shock, staring at the ruins of their fear. The people whispered softly, afraid to speak louder. Afraid to believe they had survived, Daniel knelt in the ashes, holding the alien girl in his arms, her body weak, her glow fading like the last light of the moon. He shook her gently, whispering, "Stay with me. Don't leave." His voice raw with pain, but her eyes opened slowly. Silver light still shining faintly. She looked at him, her voice broken but steady. Not end. More come, bigger, stronger. Daniel's chest tightened, his hands trembling. Then we will fight them too, he said, his words fierce, his eyes burning with courage. The people gathered slowly, their faces pale with shame. They had mocked her, betrayed her, called her a liar, and yet she had saved them. Not once did she turn away. Not once did she abandon them. They bowed their heads, unable to meet her glowing eyes. The tall leader who had once called her a trick stepped forward, his voice shaking. We were wrong, he whispered. We thought giving you away would save us, but it was you who saved us. We owe you everything. But the girl turned her face away, her silence heavier than any curse. Daniel stood, still holding her, his voice strong. Do not speak of owing. Speak of change. You wanted to kill her, you wanted to betray her, but she showed you mercy. Remember this, or you will not survive what is coming. The crowd nodded, their shame burning deeper than the fire around them. The sky rumbled again. The hunter's ship still hovered above. Damaged but not destroyed, alarms wailed from within. Sparks flew from its engines. The leader of the hunters, scarred and broken, crawled out of the wreck, his armor cracked, his mask shattered. His face twisted with rage, he roared, raising one final weapon, a blade glowing with deadly fire. He charged, his steps heavy, his voice echoing with hate. Daniel stepped forward, placing the girl gently on the ground. His rifle raised, his heart steady. He knew this was the last stand. The hunter swung, the blade slicing the air. Daniel blocked with all his strength. The clash shook the ground. Sparks flying, his arms screamed with pain, but he did not fall. He pushed back, his teeth clenched, his spirit unbroken. The girl crawled closer, her hands glowing faintly. She pressed them against the ground. Calling on the last of her strength, energy flowed into Daniel, his body steadier, his arms stronger. Together they fought as one. Human and alien bound by trust, Daniel roared, slamming the rifle against the hunter's chest. The armor cracked. The girl screamed, her light bursting brighter. The ground shivered. The blade dimmed. The hunter staggered, his strength fading, his eyes wide with fury and fear. With one final strike, Daniel drove the rifle into the hunter's chest. The girl's light surged, and together, they brought the monster down. The hunter fell into the fire. His roar silenced forever. Silence returned once more, broken only by the crackle of burning walls. Daniel dropped to his knees, gasping for breath. The girl collapsed into his arms, her glow dim but alive. The crowd erupted in cheers, relief and awe flooding their voices. For the first time, they saw her not as a threat, but as their savior. The leaders knelt before her, their pride broken, their voices soft. Forgive us, they begged. We were blind. We were fools, but the girl only closed her eyes. Too tired, too broken, Daniel spoke for her, his voice sharp. She does not need your forgiveness. She needs your respect. Remember this moment, or you will lose everything. The people wept, some from guilt, some from hope, for they knew the truth. Their survival had not come from fear, not from betrayal, but from the courage of one human and one alien girl. As the fires died, the sky cleared, stars shining once more. The colony slowly began to rebuild. Families held each other. Children asked questions, and whispers of change spread like the wind. Daniel carried the girl to the edge of the colony, where the stars were brightest. She looked up, her silver eyes glowing softly, her voice a whisper. Not end. War bigger, stars burning, more hunters, more chains. Daniel listened, his heart heavy, but he smiled faintly. Then we will be ready, and we will face it together. She leaned against him, closing her eyes, her breath slow, her body weak, but her spirit unbroken. Daniel wrapped his arm around her, staring at the endless night sky. knowing the future held danger but also hope. The colony watched them from afar, their hearts filled with new respect. They finally understood the lesson. Trust was stronger than fear, unity stronger than betrayal, and hope stronger than despair. Far above, in the silent stars, new shadows moved, distant lights that promised war yet to come. But in the ashes of the colony, among the ruins and the pain, a bond had been forged, a bond that no enemy could break. And so the story of a poor alien girl, mocked, betrayed, yet saved by a single human who believed in her, became the beginning of something greater, the spark of hope that would one day light the galaxy.